Have you ever wondered why some people multiply their wealth while others constantly live on the edge of bankruptcy? The answer isn't in their bank account, but in what happens right here, inside their mind. Today, you'll discover the 5 crucial differences between a rich mind and a poor mind. And I promise that after this video, you'll never think the same way about money and success again. Most people are trapped in mental patterns that sabotage their abundance without even realizing it. Napoleon Hill, after studying over 500 of the most successful people of his time, discovered that wealth always begins as a mental state before materializing. It's no coincidence that 2 people with the same opportunities get completely different results. It's their mindset that makes the difference. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you heard the story of someone who won the lottery or received a large inheritance only to lose it all within a few years? And have you noticed how other people seem to have a magnet for money, even when they start with nothing? The difference lies in how they think about money, how they manage it, and how they relate to the very idea of prosperity. If you want to transform your financial situation, you need to transform your mindset first. And that's exactly what you'll learn today. If you're ready to make this fundamental change, I invite you to hit the notification bell and subscribe to this channel, because every week we share information that can transform your financial life. Let's start with the first major difference between a rich mind and a poor mind. A difference that will completely change your relationship with money. The poor mind reacts impulsively to money, while the rich mind responds strategically. This is perhaps the deepest and least understood contrast between the 2 mindsets. People with a poverty mentality live in a constant state of emotional reaction when it comes to money. They feel fear, anxiety, and often act from impulsivity. A special offer, and they rush to buy. A financial problem, and they panic. An opportunity, and they rush in without analyzing it. Napoleon Hill explained it brilliantly. Control of your mind is the only discipline that will enable you to transform your dreams into reality. Because every time you react impulsively to a financial decision, you're handing control of your economic future over to external circumstances. Think about this. How many times have you impulsively bought something expensive only to regret it days later? How many times have you invested in something because everyone was doing it without really investigating? Those are typical reactions of a poor mind. You get carried away by the moment, by emotions, by the fear of missing out. The rich mind, on the other hand, has understood something fundamental. Money doesn't respond to emotions, but to calculated decisions. People with a wealth mentality observe before acting. They analyze before investing. They plan before spending. And above all, they never allow fear or euphoria to dictate their financial decisions. Carl Jung, whom Napoleon Hill deeply admired, talked about how uncontrolled emotions are a reflection of unresolved internal issues. This applies perfectly to our relationship with money. If you're easily upset, if you're destabilized by an unexpected bill, if you're overwhelmed by the idea of investing, it's not because money has power over you, but because there's something within you that you haven't yet mastered. Your emotional relationship with abundance. Sound familiar? Most people react to money as if it were a capricious entity that appears and disappears without control. But the truth is that money follows patterns, and whoever understands those patterns and acts strategically rather than emotionally has an incomparable advantage. Now I want you to do this exercise. The next time you're about to make a financial decision, whether big or small, take a 5-second pause, just 5 seconds. In that brief space, ask yourself, am I reacting emotionally or am I responding strategically? Observe how your body feels. Is there tension, anxiety? Are you acting from fear of loss or from the impulsive desire to gain? This simple act of pausing before acting is the first step to moving from a reactive poor mind to a strategic rich mind. Napoleon Hill called it the principle of self-mastery and claimed it was the foundation of all fortune, because whoever cannot master themselves will never master the art of creating wealth. Repeat after me. I control my financial decisions. My emotions do not control me. This simple statement, when internalized, begins to reprogram your relationship with money. When you learn to respond strategically rather than react emotionally, everything changes. You begin to see opportunities where before you only saw obstacles. You begin to make decisions based on data rather than fears. You begin to build a solid financial future instead of constantly putting out economic fires. And the good news is that this mental control can be trained. Every day with each financial decision, you can practice this muscle of strategic response. Start with small decisions and work your way up to bigger ones. Over time, responding rather than reacting will become your second nature. Can you imagine how your financial life would change if every decision you made was thoughtful, calculated, and strategic? If you never again bought on impulse, invested out of fear, or spent out of anxiety? That's the transformative power of moving from a reactive poor mind to a strategic rich mind. And that's what we'll talk about in the next point. The second major contrast between the rich mind and the poor mind is in their relationship with attachment. The poor mind desperately clings to what it has, while the rich mind has mastered the art of letting go to gain more. There's a profound truth that Napoleon Hill discovered after years of studying the most successful people. Excessive attachment is the greatest financial weakness a person can have. Everything you cling to, everything you find hard to let go of, is exactly what keeps you anchored in your current economic situation. People with a poverty mentality have an irrational fear of losing what they've achieved. They cling to jobs they hate for fear of insecurity. They maintain investments that are no longer profitable because they're terrified to admit they were wrong. They keep possessions they no longer use because they might need them someday. This constant attachment not only consumes their physical space but also their mental space. Napoleon Hill expressed it forcefully. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same mind at the same time. And he was right. When you live in constant fear of losing what you have, there's no mental space to visualize what you could gain. The rich mind, on the other hand, understands a fundamental principle. To receive the new, sometimes you have to let go of the old. People with a wealth mentality aren't afraid to abandon an investment when it no longer works. They're not afraid to quit a secure but stagnant job when a better opportunity arises. They don't cling to old methods when the market evolves. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to stay stuck at the same financial level for decades? It's precisely because of this irrational fear of letting go. The fear of loss is so powerful that they prefer familiar mediocrity to unknown potential. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine two people who invested in a business. After a year, it's clear the business isn't doing well. The person with a poor mind thinks, "I've already invested so much money, I can't leave now. I need to recover my investment." And they continue putting more and more resources into something that doesn't work. The person with a rich mind, however, analyzes the situation and says, "This business isn't working. Better to cut my losses now, learn the lesson, and use my capital and energy on something more promising." See the difference? The poor mind clings to the past, to what's already been invested. The rich mind looks toward the future, toward potential. Napoleon Hill studied this phenomenon and called it the principle of decision. He observed that successful people make decisions quickly and change their minds slowly, but when change is necessary, they do it without emotional attachment. They're not married to their past decisions. They're committed to their future success. Now I want you to do this exercise. Think about something in your financial life that you're clinging to out of fear. It could be a job that no longer satisfies you, an investment that doesn't yield as expected, or even an expensive object you bought and no longer use. Now imagine it's no longer in your life. Visualize how you would feel if you let it go. Is there a feeling of lightness, of freedom, of new possibilities? That sensation is evidence that letting go might be exactly what you need. Repeat this powerful affirmation. I trust that what is best for my prosperity will come effortlessly when I am willing to let go of what no longer serves me. This phrase, when deeply internalized, reprograms your relationship with attachment and fear of loss. True financial power isn't in desperately accumulating, but in having the freedom to let go when something no longer contributes to your growth. It's paradoxical, but true. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose in order to win. The person who isn't afraid to lose temporarily is the one who wins consistently in the long run. If you truly want to transform your relationship with money, start by evaluating what you're clinging to out of fear. Is it a secure job with no future? Is it a way of investing that no longer gives results? Is it a belief about money that you inherited but no longer serves you? The next time you feel that resistance to letting something go, remember, attachment is the chain that keeps you tied to your current situation. The freedom to let go is the ticket to new financial possibilities. And if you're still not convinced, follow Napoleon Hill's advice. Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great. When you master the art of letting go, something magical happens. Your energy is freed. You're no longer constantly worried about protecting what you have or lamenting what you lost. That release of mental energy allows you to see opportunities that were previously hidden from your eyes. And believe me, in the world of finance and business, the best opportunities often appear right when you've had the courage to let go of something that was no longer working. Because the universe abhors a vacuum, and when you create space by letting go of what no longer serves you, you open the door to new possibilities for abundance. As you practice this art of letting go, you'll notice that your relationship with money becomes more fluid, less tense. Money begins to circulate in your life instead of stagnating, and that circulation is the very essence of abundance. As Napoleon Hill discovered, wealth is a product of flow, not of static accumulation. And about that flow, that freedom that comes when you learn to let go, we'll talk in the next point. A difference that marks the before and after in your path to prosperity. The third crucial distinction between the rich mind and the poor mind is the handling of information and communication. The poor mind talks excessively, reveals everything, and seeks validation, while the rich mind has mastered the art of strategic silence. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, heard, and constantly validated, people with a wealth mentality have discovered a powerful secret. Silence is a form of power. They don't need to announce their plans. They don't need to show off their achievements. They don't need to seek external approval. They act in silence and let the results speak for themselves. Napoleon Hill observed this pattern among the most successful and expressed it brilliantly. The wise man speaks because he has something to say. The fool speaks because he has to say something. This simple distinction makes an abysmal difference in how a person's financial life develops. Think about the richest people you know, either personally or through the media. Notice how they reveal very little about their real strategies, how they rarely announce their moves before executing them. This is no coincidence. They've learned that discretion is an invaluable competitive advantage. The poor mind, in contrast, lives in a state of constant revelation. They tell everyone about their plans before executing them. They boast about their small victories before consolidating them. They reveal their strategies to anyone who asks. And with each unnecessary word, they deliver a piece of power that they could have used to their benefit. The psychology behind this behavior is fascinating. People with a poverty mentality talk excessively because they constantly seek external validation. They need others to approve their ideas, applaud their achievements, confirm their decisions. This need for validation is a symptom of internal insecurity about their own judgment. Napoleon Hill identified this pattern and warned, "Public opinion is the weakest thermometer of measuring success." He understood that whoever depends on the opinion of others to validate their financial decisions will never be able to make the unconventional decisions that often lead to extraordinary wealth. Have you ever found yourself telling your plans to everyone, seeking approval before acting? Have you noticed how sometimes, after talking extensively about a project, you lose the motivation to actually carry it out? This is no coincidence. Psychologists call it substitute satisfaction. Talking so much about what you're going to do provides a false sense of achievement that reduces the motivation to actually do it. The rich mind, on the other hand, keeps silence until there are concrete results to show. It doesn't seek applause for intentions, but recognition for real achievements. And this silence gives it an incomparable advantage. While everyone reveals their strategies, the person with a wealth mentality observes, learns, and acts without alerting the competition. Now, It's not about becoming a hermetic or distrustful person. It's about being strategic with your information. Napoleon Hill expressed it this way: keep your plans secret, share your successes. This balance allows you to advance without the interference of external opinions that could divert you from your path. Want a practical exercise to develop this muscle of strategic silence? For the next week, every time you have the impulse to share a business idea or an important financial decision, pause. Ask yourself, do I really need this person's opinion? Or am I seeking validation because I don't fully trust my decision? If it's the latter, keep silent and act first. Repeat this powerful affirmation. My best ideas mature in silence and are validated with results, not opinions. When you internalize this truth, you begin to develop an internal confidence that is the hallmark of those who build substantial wealth. Strategic silence gives you another immense benefit. It makes you more observant. While others talk, you listen. While they reveal their strategies, you take note. While they seek approval, you analyze the market. And this meticulous observation allows you to detect opportunities that go unnoticed by those who are too busy talking. Napoleon Hill discovered this in his extensive interviews with millionaires. The ability to observe in silence was a common trait among the most successful. The average man talks more than he listens, he wrote. The wise man reverses this proportion. This simple inversion of energy, less talking, more listening, can completely transform your financial intelligence. There's another aspect of strategic silence that is rarely discussed: its impact on your personal presence. When you talk less and observe more, people begin to perceive a magnetic quality in you. Your presence becomes stronger, more confident. Your words, when you finally pronounce them, have more weight. People with a wealth mentality cultivated this presence not by accident, but as a direct result of their mastery of silence. Have you noticed how truly influential people speak less but say more? How they don't need to raise their voice for everyone to pay attention to them? This is the external manifestation of an internal discipline, control over the need to speak without purpose. So the next time you're in an important meeting, in a negotiation, or even in a casual conversation about money, remember, your silence can be your most powerful weapon. Don't reveal all your cards. Don't explain all your strategies. Don't seek validation for every idea. Observe, listen, analyze, and act when you have clarity, not when you need approval. As Napoleon Hill said, the first and best victory is to conquer oneself. And mastering the impulse to talk excessively is one of the most difficult but most valuable conquests on your path to prosperity. Because silence isn't empty, it's full of potential, strategy, power. And speaking of power, there's a fourth fundamental difference between the rich mind and the poor mind that completely transforms the dynamics of influence and success. And that's what we'll talk about in the next point. The fourth decisive contrast between a wealth mentality and a poverty one is their relationship with personal priorities. The poor mind lives to please others, while the rich mind has learned the art of strategically prioritizing itself. From a young age, many of us were taught that thinking about ourselves is selfish, that we must sacrifice for others, that putting our needs first is something negative. But Napoleon Hill, after studying hundreds of extraordinarily successful people, came to a counterintuitive conclusion. The people who achieve great fortunes are precisely those who have learned to prioritize themselves intelligently.
It's not about destructive selfishness. It's about strategic selfishness. The difference is subtle but profound. Destructive selfishness takes without giving. Strategic selfishness invests in oneself to be able to give more later. As Hill himself said, success requires first self-love. It is impossible to love others if you don't first love yourself. Think about it. Every time you put yourself last, every time you sacrifice your dreams to please others' expectations, every time you say yes when you want to say no, you're ceding control of your life and your finances to others. You're training the world to value you less than you deserve. The rich mind understands something fundamental. No one values what is given too easily. The person who is always available, who always says yes, who always puts their needs last, will inevitably be treated as an option, never as a priority. Has it happened to you that you're always the one who adapts to others' schedules? That your personal projects always take a back seat because you're helping others with theirs? That your financial goals are delayed because you prioritize everyone's economic needs except your own? Those are clear symptoms of a poverty mentality in relation to your priorities. Napoleon Hill expressed it clearly. Failure is a temporary defeat. Giving up is what makes it permanent. And many people give up on their financial dreams because they've been conditioned to believe that prioritizing themselves is wrong. The wealth mentality inverts this equation. It understands that it's not about selfishness, but about oxygen. Like on airplanes, where they instruct you to put on your own oxygen mask first before helping others in case of emergency. Why? Because if you run out of oxygen, you won't be able to help anyone else. Your resources, your time, your energy, your money are your oxygen. If you spend them all on others without replenishing them, you'll eventually have nothing left to give. The person with a wealth mentality invests first in themselves, in their education, in their health, in their growth, in their projects. Not out of selfishness, but because they understand that it's the only way to have more to share later. Have you noticed how the most generous people also tend to be the ones with the clearest boundaries? It's no coincidence. They've learned that boundaries aren't walls to keep others out, but filters to ensure they only invest their energy in relationships and opportunities that are truly worthwhile. Here's a practical exercise to begin developing this priority mentality. For the next week, before saying yes to any request, ask yourself, does this bring me closer to my financial goals or further away from them? Does this person or situation add value to my life or just consume my energy? And if the answer isn't clear, dare to say, I need to think about it, instead of an automatic yes. Repeat this powerful affirmation. My financial well-being is a priority, not an act of selfishness. By taking care of my resources, I can better help those I truly value. This simple phrase, when internalized, begins to transform how you relate to your boundaries and priorities. Prioritizing your financial goals doesn't mean ignoring the needs of others. It means recognizing that your prosperity isn't the enemy of others' prosperity. In fact, when you grow financially, you generate more resources to support what really matters to you. As Napoleon Hill said, individual prosperity contributes to collective prosperity. The wealth mentality understands that saying no to what doesn't add to you is saying yes to what really matters. Every time you reject an opportunity that doesn't bring you closer to your goals, you're freeing up space and energy for those that will. Every time you establish a boundary with someone who drains your resources, you're protecting those resources to invest in those who truly deserve them. Have you noticed that the most financially successful people are often the ones who allow themselves to be interrupted the least? They protect their time almost religiously. They have schedules for meetings, for calls, for personal projects, not because they value others less, but because they've understood the incalculable value of their focus and energy. If you truly want to transform your financial situation, start by transforming how you prioritize your resources. Invest in yourself before anything else. Dedicate daily time to your financial education. Set aside money for your investments before allocating it to superfluous expenses. Protect your mental energy by limiting exposure to people who drain your motivation. I can assure you of this. When you begin to treat yourself as a priority, the world begins to treat you the same way. It's a kind of psychological magic. What you project is what you attract. If you value yourself little and are available to anyone at any time, the world will treat you as a convenient option. If you value yourself highly and protect your time and energy, the world will perceive you as someone valuable whose attention must be earned. And here's the most beautiful paradox. When you learn to prioritize yourself strategically, you end up having much more to give to those who really matter, not less. It's like optimizing an engine. When you eliminate energy leaks, performance improves dramatically. Napoleon Hill discovered this in his extensive research. The most successful people aren't those who say yes to everything. They're those who say yes selectively to what really matters. And to be able to make that selection, they first had to learn to value themselves enough to say no without guilt. So the next time you find yourself sacrificing your financial goals to please others' expectations, remember, every time you postpone your economic growth to please others, you're robbing yourself of the opportunity to create the abundance that would allow you to help in much more significant ways in the future. And this brings us to the fifth and final point, where everything above converges to create something truly transformative. A difference so profound between the rich mind and the poor mind that once you integrate it, forever changes how the world responds to you. And that's what we'll talk about next. The fifth and perhaps most powerful difference between the rich mind and the poor mind is the personal presence they project. The poor mind constantly seeks approval, while the rich mind has developed a presence that generates automatic respect without needing to ask for it. This isn't a superficial difference. It's not about expensive clothes or luxury accessories. It's about something much deeper. The energy you radiate when you've fully integrated your personal value and no longer need external validation to feel complete.
Napoleon Hill called it the mental chemistry of success, after observing how truly prosperous people seemed to have a magnetic quality that effortlessly attracted opportunities, resources, and people to them. It wasn't coincidence or luck. It was the direct result of having reached a mental state where they no longer feared losing anything. Think about the most influential people you know. Have you noticed how they have a presence that's felt as soon as they enter a room? They don't need to speak loudly. They don't need to impress anyone. They don't need to show off their achievements. They're simply present, confident, centered. That quality is the end result of having integrated the 4 previous points. They don't react impulsively. They've learned to let go of what doesn't serve them. They master the art of silence, and they prioritize themselves without guilt. The poor mind, in contrast, projects an energy of need to be accepted, to be included, to be valued, and paradoxically, this constant need for external validation is precisely what repels great opportunities. As Napoleon Hill said, "What you fear, you attract." When you live in fear of being rejected or ignored, you unconsciously create exactly that reality. Have you ever found yourself trying too hard to impress in a job interview or an important meeting? Have you noticed how that excessive effort often produces the opposite effect to the one desired? That's the energy of need in action, and it's like repellent for prosperity opportunities. The rich mind has transcended that need, not because it's indifferent or arrogant, but because it has cultivated such solid internal security that it no longer depends on external factors to validate its worth. Napoleon Hill expressed it brilliantly. Self-confidence is the first secret of success. This unwavering confidence isn't born overnight. It's the result of a process of personal transformation where you gradually release all thought patterns based on scarcity and replace them with an abundance mentality. Do you know what happens when you stop chasing the approval of others? You become magnetic. It's a fascinating paradox. The less you need to be validated, the more valued you are. The less you worry about impressing, the more you impress. Napoleon Hill described it as the law of inverse attraction. What you pursue least is precisely what you attract most. The personal presence of someone with a wealth mentality doesn't come from what they do, but from what they've stopped doing. They've stopped constantly explaining themselves. They've stopped seeking validation for every decision. They've stopped worrying about what others think of their path. And this liberation of all that mental energy that was previously wasted on external concerns is now channeled into a powerful presence that others instinctively perceive. Here's a transformative exercise to develop this presence. For a week, consciously observe each time you feel the need to justify a decision, to explain your actions, or to seek approval. Instead of yielding to that impulse, simply maintain your position with calm and confidence. Don't defend yourself. Don't explain yourself. Don't justify yourself. Simply be with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their own worth. Repeat this powerful affirmation. My worth doesn't depend on external validation. My presence speaks for me. When you truly internalize this truth, something magical begins to happen. People start treating you differently. They no longer constantly question your decisions. They no longer try to impose their opinions on your financial choices. They begin to respect your boundaries, your priorities, and your values. Napoleon Hill discovered this after interviewing hundreds of millionaires. They had all reached a turning point where they stopped seeking the world's approval and began to act from an unshakable internal conviction. It was precisely at that moment that their fortunes began to multiply exponentially. It's no coincidence. When you release all the mental energy you previously spent worrying about what others think, that energy is now directed toward creativity, innovation, problem-solving, and recognizing opportunities. Your mind becomes a machine focused on creating value and abundance, not on protecting your ego or your image. Have you noticed how truly prosperous people have a quality of imperturbability? They aren't easily disturbed, they don't react to provocations, they maintain their center even in chaotic situations. This isn't a quality they were born with, it's a muscle they deliberately developed, understanding that whoever keeps calm in the midst of the storm is who makes the best financial decisions. Personal presence is perhaps your most valuable financial asset. It cannot be copied, it cannot be stolen, it cannot be replicated. It's completely unique to you and strengthens with each conscious decision you make from your center, rather than from your need for validation. Each time you stand firm in a negotiation when before you would have yielded out of insecurity. Each time you walk away from an opportunity that doesn't align with your values when before you would have said yes out of fear of losing. Each time you maintain strategic silence when before you would have over-explained your decisions. You're strengthening this personal presence that, over time, becomes your hallmark. Napoleon Hill called it the X factor of success, that intangible but powerful element that distinguishes those who reach extraordinary levels of prosperity. It's not just what they know, or even what they do, it's who they've become. It's the presence they've cultivated. And the most extraordinary thing is that this presence not only transforms your financial results, but your entire life experience. Relationships become more authentic because you no longer attract people who want to take advantage of your need for approval. The opportunities that arise are more aligned with your true potential because you no longer accept less than you deserve. Decisions become clearer because they're no longer clouded by fear of rejection or failure. What happens when you reach this level is truly transformative. You no longer try to fit in. You attract those who resonate with your authenticity. You no longer desperately chase opportunities. Opportunities begin to seek you out. You no longer fear losing because you know your value doesn't depend on external factors, but on your unshakable internal certainty. And here's the final secret that Napoleon Hill discovered after decades of studying the brightest and most prosperous minds of his time. This personal presence isn't just a result of financial success, it's its fundamental cause. People don't become confident after achieving wealth. They achieve wealth because they first cultivate this powerful presence that allows them to see and take advantage of opportunities that are invisible to others. Are you ready to make this fundamental change in your energy? To stop seeking validation and start projecting value. It requires nothing external, no special circumstance, no resource you don't already possess. It only requires the conscious decision to transform your relationship with external approval. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to live completely free from the need to impress others. Imagine making financial decisions based solely on what you know is right for you, without worrying about what others will think. Imagine negotiating from a position of quiet power, knowing you can walk away from any deal that doesn't fully honor you. That freedom, that quiet power, that unwavering confidence, that's the very essence of a wealth mentality. And the journey to that freedom begins with a simple but profound understanding. Your worth isn't up for discussion. It doesn't need to be proven, defended, or explained. It simply is. And when you live from that truth, the financial world responds accordingly. If you've made it this far, It's because something inside you recognizes these truths. Something in you knows you deserve more than you've been receiving. Something in you is ready to make the transition from a poverty mentality to a wealth mentality. And that recognition, that willingness, is the first step in a journey that will transform not only your finances, but your entire life experience. We've already explored the 5 fundamental differences between a rich mind and a poor mind. We've seen how the way you react, your ability to let go, your strategic use of silence, your ability to prioritize yourself, and the personal presence you project determine not only your financial success, but the total quality of your life. Now is the time to take these understandings from theory to practice. It's time to turn this knowledge into action. Because as Napoleon Hill well said, knowledge is not power, it is potential power. It becomes power only when it is organized into definite plans of action. So what will you do differently starting today? Which aspect of the wealth mentality will you incorporate first into your life? The decision is yours, but the moment is now. The moment is always now. Perhaps you've lived years, even decades, with thought patterns that have limited your prosperity. Perhaps you've been reacting emotionally to money instead of responding strategically. Perhaps you've clung to situations and relationships that drain your financial energy. Perhaps you've talked too much and observed too little. Perhaps you've put yourself last when you should have been your priority. Perhaps you've sought external validation when what you needed was to trust your own inner compass. But your past doesn't determine your future unless you continue to think and act exactly the same way. As Napoleon Hill discovered, any limitation is self-imposed, and what one has imposed on oneself, one can decide to release. Today is your opportunity to break with those old patterns, to take the first step toward a new way of relating to money, to prosperity, to abundance. Not because money is the ultimate end, but because it's a form of energy that allows you to create, contribute, and live in fullness. If you're truly committed to this transformation, I invite you to leave a comment below with these words. I choose the wealth mentality. I commit to transforming my relationship with money from the inside out. This public declaration is powerful. It's a commitment to yourself and your future. And if this video has brought you value, share it with someone you think could benefit from these ideas. True abundance multiplies when shared. Remember to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos on how to develop an abundance mindset and transform your relationship with money. Each week we explore different aspects of Napoleon Hill's teachings and how to apply them in today's world. The difference between a life of constant economic struggle and one of growing prosperity isn't in external resources, but in internal ones. Not in what you have, but in how you think about what you have and what you can create. As Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. That's the essence of the wealth mentality. That's the fundamental difference between a rich mind and a poor mind. That's the transformation that's available to you right now. The choice is yours. What do you decide?